Welcome everyone to Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorney's YouTube page. My name is Kelly Yazdi, and I have the absolute pleasure of getting to interview my friend Dana Wilke. Dana, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, for those of you tuning in, Dana worked with Harley-Davidson for 15 years, holding a variety of global marketing and sales roles. She was primarily focused on key growth areas of the company, such as U.S. market development and U.S. retail development. She's also one of the founding members of the Jessi Foundation, passionate about educating, inspiring, and empowering the next generation of female trailblazers and stereotype breakers. Dana, it's an honor to have you.
Oh my gosh, Kelly, it's an honor to be here. And just hearing you, honestly, when you hearing you talk and explain that, it still kind of gives me chills when it comes to the foundation stuff because it's yeah, it's pretty special. So thanks for the intro.
Absolutely, and I'm very excited to dive in more about that very shortly here. And just to kick it off, I'd love to just, turn the mic over to you, Dana, and ask like, how in the heck did you get into motorcycling in the first place?
Oh, it's a good question. And honestly, like my response usually I grew up on the back of a motorcycle. I like kind of literally I was born into it in a lot of ways. My mom and my dad both rode motorcycles, and that was something they loved to do. It was a family sport for us. And so they wanted to share that with my brother and I. And so as soon as my brother was 6 and I was 9, and my dad, we drove our van out to Iowa, I think it was, to pick up a PW80, Yamaha PW80, little mini dirt bike. And that was the beginning of what kind of the trajectory of what motorcycles have done for me in my life. But 9 years old. But prior to that, before I could ride my own, I mean, I'm not kidding when I say grew up on the back of a motorcycle. There's a picture of my dad holding me as like an infant on, with our dog in the sidecar, and
That's awesome.
him on the bike. So like, and then picture me when I'm 3 years old in my mom's Sportster. And then my dad would take me to school, to my first day of school every year on the motorcycle, on his motorcycle when we'd go to, right before he'd go to work. So I remember kindergarten was, that was the coolest thing in the world. And I thought that was normal,
Mm.
right? That doesn't every little girl grow up on the back of a motorcycle and then start to ride when they're 9. And as we know, that is not the case. I didn't
No.
know until I got out into the world. So
Mhm. That's incredible. So, I mean, did you feel at a young age that you were like, I want to just be on a bike for the rest of my life and I want to work in the motorcycle industry?
I didn't, if I'm honest, Kelly, I didn't always know what I wanted to do, but the more I reflect back, I realized that motorcycling, being on a motorcycle, being around motorcycles, riding a motorcycle is like one of the places I feel most confident like in my life. And
Mm.
and like, like it's something that it gives me that confidence. It's been of the vehicle metaphorically and physically,
Mm.
and spiritually and otherwise, I guess, that has led me to some of my most treasured memories in my entire life, from that young age through to my career, through to my friendships. It's like it's all revolved around the machine and where it takes you and kind of moves your soul.
That's so beautifully said, and I feel such resonance with that as I have also had such a similar experience with motorcycles. It's a connection to so many things such as adventure and incredible people and community. And I mean, this is a perfect example of that, right? It's because of motorcycling that you and I met.
Yeah.
And that's something that I definitely don't take for granted. So it's just cool how this one machine of like freedom and empowerment and adventure really can like build your life in the most beautiful way.
hmm It
Yeah.
it really can. And when it's interesting when I explain my story, and I'll share this. It almost like for a very long time I've almost felt insecure about the fact that I grew up on a motorcycle, because I
Mhm.
came, as I got into the world of my working world and my corporate kind of business career, where I realized how challenging it is, or may seem to people, to get into the sport, especially if you're a female. when you didn't grow up with that in an environment that was part of your upbringing, and how hard it's given me such a deep level of respect, I think, and revere for the women, especially that find their way into this sport and fight their way in, when the world's telling you otherwise, whether it be your parents or your family or whoever. Um, so I think that's what's propelled me, because I felt like I had this gift, um, from the gift of motorcycling through my parents. Like, it makes me want to share that and welcome as many people as I can into this sport, because it's not easy to get into, and it can be intimidating. So I think as I look back, I've made that part of my mission, my personal mission, I guess, is to be someone that can wants to bring others in, because I know that, like, I got here in a way that a lot of
Mhm.
people don't, and I look at that as my opportunity to share with others.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that beautifully dovetails into the work and mission you're doing with the Jessi Combs Foundation. And before we dive into that though, I would love to touch base on your experience. I mean, you worked with Harley Davidson for 15 years. That's a long time. And I'd love to just hear more about like the roles you had and I mean how that all came to be.
Yeah, that's so yeah, being with the brand for 15 years, I will say that I feel like I'll always bleed black and orange.
Yeah.
It's like it's in my DNA. I would, go to the Davidsons' house to get to, for babysitting, and wander around Willie G's motorcycle collection, and Karen Davidson's such a dear friend. And like, I thought that was my environment. And now I look back and how truly special that is and was, because of the brand, one of
Mm,
the top most recognized brands in the world, based on the community. And I think that's kind of going into it. I grew up riding motorcycles, then worked in dealerships in high school and college. And then that took me, went to school, and then afterwards, again, didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I was drawn to marketing, but again, motorcycling was like, I brought my Sportster to college with me, and like that was like it's always been like it's like my safety blanket. Oddly, it's
sure.
like, for such a thing that some people think is like crazy. But it's my comfort zone, oddly enough. And so when I got the internship with Harley Davidson Europe in the UK, that just like it cracked open a whole new world for me.
Mm,
Living in Europe and seeing the brand through different eyes culturally. Um, and that's also where my true love for adventure, exploration and exploring on two wheels started.
yeah.
Um, because it was like when I got there, I had access to a motorcycle, and that was it, not a car. I had to get like legit rain gear because it rains about every single day in the UK. And that was how I got to work, was on the motorcycle. And that's where I learned to lane filter, or lane split, as it were.
Mhm.
So I'm like this blonde American chick riding like the largest, motorcycle, um, in the UK, where everything's, things are a little bit more compressed
Well,
than we're used
right.
to in the United States of grandeur. So but I didn't know any different. And so it was like I rode every day to work, through the rain, through whatever. And then it propelled me into adventure travel on a motorcycle by myself,
Mm,
because I felt like it was such a special opportunity to be in Europe and be on a motorcycle, that I didn't want to pass up any opportunity to see the most that I could.
sure.
And there's not always someone that wants to go along. And so that, I would ask people in the office, or I'd ask, just, when I didn't really know anybody, but I'd ask the people I knew, and sometimes I'd get takers, and sometimes people are like, no, no, not gonna, can't do it, cannot, don't have the time. And so I'm like, okay, am I gonna pass up this opportunity to ride from Saint Tropez, to Milan, to Italy, like to southern Italy. Like,
Yep.
am I not gonna do that, or am I gonna like, all right, you got to do it? And so I did it, and did it on my own, which again felt normal, but I'm like, okay, I guess that
So
probably.
badass.
So,
Mhm.
but that was, I guess, just following my heart and soul on that type of thing because, um, and so I ended up writing a lot on my own, and I do still today, at times, and I love that about writing.
I think that's so incredible, and what an experience you got to have. I mean, working in Europe with Harley-Davidson, getting to travel, getting to explore. I mean, and when did that lead you back to the States?
Well, my visa expired, so we renewed it a couple times, and that's honestly that's kind of the answer. And so it was really interesting to have that exposure to the brand and how it's seen through different eyes, through the various different cultures in Europe, and it's almost like a role reversal, in my career, because it's not as though I like started with Harley corporate in the US. I started with Harley, I started with dealerships in the US, but then Harley corporate really in Europe. So this totally different global mindset, different languages, different, and then came to the US
Mm,
quarters. And it was like, so I had uh, this mind for that was just opened in a different way, I think, through working with so many different cultures. Um, that was that was my foundation. Like
mhm,
I was predisposed to that, and I thought that because we had to find ways to work with people that like 8 different languages and 8 different ways of doing things, and but with a common goal and a common love for motorcycles, and so that was so I brought that back with me to the US, and then started my career at Harley in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
mhm,
So, and like again, feeling like my basis for my career was my confidence in being a true enthusiast and consumer minded person, at my core. And so
mhm,
how can I like where can I use that to have a career, I guess, is again, I didn't know it necessarily when I was doing it, but when I look in the rear view a little bit, that's kind of how I see it. It was this thing that I was confident in, and how could I translate that into to what I do in my work.
mhm,
And so at any time I could, um, I was a hand raiser anytime I could go to an event, work an event, you know, sponsor Babes Ride Out in the some of the early days, and go to Born Free in the early days, and like just all that was like anytime I could travel on a motorcycle, like I was like, I'll go. I can't tell you how many Daytona bike weeks that I've been
yeah.
to. Um,
Or Sturgis rallies.
Right. And Sturgis, and going out to ride in California with the people that I would meet, whether, then I kind of, so I started in public relations in Europe and then in the US, um and helped launch the Harley-Davidson, the Sportster XR 1200X, actually, that's the bike that's behind me,
Mhm,
which we launched in Europe first, and then I got to launch it again, relaunch it in the United States. So that bike's really special to me because of, doing the photo shoots, and the race DNA. I love racing, and so the racing heritage that motorcycle represents. There's so many different avenues, Kelly, that you go
yeah,
down. So that led to partnership marketing, or whether that be the X Games, you name it, those types of things. But like I said, really kind of growth areas of the company. I was always wanting to see more, do more, make connections to things that people may not have connected yet into the
mhm,
business, and with an authenticity of that this was in my heart, just in my DNA from growing up.
mm,
Um, and so I felt like I could follow my intuition, on some of those things,
mhm,
at varying degrees of uh, acceptance or whatever at times.
right. I mean, what an incredible story, Dana, and I feel like it's this palette of experience that you've had with, I mean, over a decade, almost 2 decades, right, of experience in motorcycling. I mean, especially with your 15 years with Harley-Davidson, it's all transpired into what you're doing now. And I know it's not just one thing, it's multiple things, but I think this is a great way to introduce your work with the Jessi Combs Foundation.
Yeah, it sure has. I mean, what a ride that I had no idea, would lead to kind of finding my vocation in many ways, or something that I'm so passionate about and really speaks to my soul and my desire to empower others. And again, what I mentioned earlier, and when we were talking, and sharing with others, um, sharing in general. We and in a Sturgis at the Biker Bells one time, this kind of came out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh, I didn't never thought of it like that. It's like, it's badass to be nice. Like, how do we infuse that into the industry? And the
Yes,
the person that I came across that showed me that, many people have showed that to me, but the standout is Jessi Combs.
mm,
And motorcycling is what brought us together as friends, and it was like, just kind of instant, when I'm
I
sure
know
folks
exactly what you mean,
you
yeah.
know what I mean. And I'm sure folks that listening know that when you find someone you can ride a motorcycle with, or that you connect with in motorcycling, like, it's like this bond that it's hard to explain.
Totally.
And that was it, when I met Jessi. And that was the year, well, you know, we we became friends, and then I would help her get motorcycles. Um, and we both lived in Los Angeles at the time, and so we started riding together. And she was super busy, I was super busy, and because I was living in Los Angeles at the time and commuting once a week, a month, back to Milwaukee to headquarters. I kept a desk there, so I had um, multiple locations. And just it's hard to even, like I said, it's hard to explain, but which is a common phrase in motorcycling, right? Is like, if I have to explain, you wouldn't understand. But
Mhm.
we try to explain.
Yeah,
Uh,
right?
that we have to, but that's how I met Jessi. And like, she really was a true leader, and led by example in so many ways, and became just this shining star of what a friendship can be like,
Mhm.
what a riding friend can be like. And you know so we just would ride anywhere we could, whether that be to Mexico for El Diablo run,
Right?
or like,
Good times.
or like on a Friday, call each other and be like, all right, let's, what are you doing? I'm like, all right, we're gonna blow out of town, around this weekend, going up to Kernville camp out, or Babes Right Out, or all these different things. We were able to find each other, and that changed my life.
I think it's incredible that this friendship that was cultivated between you and Jessi has, you know, continued on, and although she departed our world in the most badass way that she possibly could, right? Years back. I mean, you and the team and the family that started the Jessi Combs Foundation. I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And so that was, the day we lost Jessi. I'll never forget that. But as you mentioned, she earned the title she was working so hard for, her Guinness Book of World Record titles, the fastest woman on earth.
Mhm,
Um, and so, Jessi did many remarkable things, that being one of them. But, and I only knew, I say only, but it's been this journey of learning more over these last few years. I knew that Jessi was my friend, and I knew her in the motorcycle realm. She was in all these different verticals, whether it be, racing cars, or, her foundation of the basis of her as a welder and a metal fabricator, and truly a creative artist. Anyway, so when we lost her, it was like, we had the group of us that banded together at her house, and wrote the mission statement within a few days of losing her, because there's just this, magnetic draw of what Jessi was up to in
mhm.
life. And we were like, we got to continue the work that she started, I think. And I'd never felt more strongly about something before
Mm,
in my life. And honestly, that the mission statement was in my resignation letter to Harley-Davidson. I didn't know what I was necessarily going to do next, but I knew that this was important, and that I could help. I could be one of the handful of folks to help shepherd that and be in service to this mission, because she was ahead of her time, Kelly, in so many ways. You know
I
what I
know.
mean?
Hmm.
And her brand of empowerment, I think was remarkable. And the way that I explained it to people is that she, had this remarkable way of achieving, and her grit and determination and drive that took her far, while also bringing others, especially women, along with her.
100%.
And there's a lot of remarkable people out there that achieve great things. It's not everybody takes the time to bring others with them, and that I wish it wasn't unique, but but it is, I think. And she invented that for me, and represented that, and that, like, you know that was in her DNA. And
Hmm.
so that was like, all right, we need to continue the work Jessi started in a lot of ways. And the paths that she paved, or I've almost said it's like she kind of cut down all the barriers, and she proved what was possible. Now, how do we, like, put pavers in
Mm,
behind her and, like, make that a
yes.
road, like an actual roadway, that other women can use as their superhighway.
Hmm.
And so that shows up in a variety of ways. But yeah, the mission statement: educate, inspire, empower the next generation of trailblazers. And that's what Jessi was to me, in every essence of the word, was a trailblazer. And so if for folks that don't know Jessi Combs, please go out and Google her. We have her website is still live, and we maintain that. And so read some of her blogs, or go to her social media page, and get inspired, because she left, yeah,
Mm,
true
it's so true.
legacy. And so that, parlayed into the work we're doing now. And so we founded the Jessi Combs Foundation in 2019, like I said, within a few days of losing her. And here we are today, and we're growing. We've grown every year. I'm so proud of the work that the entire team and the industry and Jessi's fans, and the people that believed in everything that she stood for, that's what's been our driving force. Uh,
Hmm. Which is so incredible. And I'd love to know, Dana, what kinds of avenues have you guys moved forward in with the foundation?
so, and there was no template, as it were. Like, there's a lot of foundations out there, but this had to be different. This had to be Jessi, Jessi,
Yeah,
which,
it's just tried and true.
right, exactly. And
What
so,
would Jesse Combs do?
what would Jessi do, is we ask ourselves that all the time. And while we'll never know exactly, we can kind of follow the roadmap she left on our hearts. And so the trades were important to Jessi. I don't For folks that don't know that, I mean, that's what really that sent her career in the direction that it went. The basis was, she was a welder and a metal fabricator, and she went to trade school, and that changed her direction. And so she had those skills, and it took her far. And she was really passionate about sharing that with others. And so she founded, with Teresa Contreras, Real Deal Revolution, and they did
Mhm,
workshops, hands-on, putting tools in girls' hands and igniting that spark. And so what we've been focused on as the foundation for the last 4 years is a scholarship program for girls who want to go to trade school.
mhm,
And I think that was something that was in Jessi's pathway, but again, hadn't quite got to it yet. I actually found some notes, on her desk, and I hadn't looked at them. And I went back, 3 years into the program, I went back and looked at these notes, and there was like scholarship program. There was, these things in there in her handwriting. And anyway, and so we've raised money every year and given back out to women trailblazers who are paving their way and blazing a trail that's different than a lot of people. And we want to be the wind beneath their wings, as it were, and show the world what's possible. I think
Mhm.
by shining the spotlight, like every door that Jessi kicked um, in her own special, sweet, hi guys kind of way, like
Totally.
with a smile, and like I can hear her voice right now. It was like, okay, say I can't, I'll show you,
With a smile on her face.
yeah, with a smile and kindness and love the whole all the way to the checkered flag. Um,
Mhm.
and so this program, Kelly, it's blossomed into something that I honestly didn't expect in some ways, and that came naturally through the community that has blossomed. So each year, the first year we gave 7 scholarships to 7 women in trade school.
I
Um, $30,000 the first year, $35,000. We've given now over $180,000 out
awesome.
to women. We've got 35 girls, and they named themselves Jessi's Girls, like the song,
Oh, yeah, Jesse's I know.
Yeah.
So
So
beautiful.
these girls love and revere her. And so like I said, what's come out of this is, there are other scholarship programs out there. We're not the only one, but one of the things that makes, I think, Jessi's program unique is that the awarding of the funds isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a lifelong connection to a community of like-minded women that want to see you grow and thrive and,
Mhm,
and and change the world like Jessi did that.
mhm,
So the men and women that are behind the foundation, and I say men as well specifically because there are really, really influential and the picture of what it means to be a male ally, that uh, that are a part of the organization and have been since the
right.
beginning. So that's what we're doing, and like that, when I think about that community piece, it's so it's hard to even put it's hard to explain sometimes, but what I found, we host monthly calls for the girls, and some
Mhm,
girls don't necessarily re-engage. No one's required to, but what we found, I think, was that some of these girls didn't know there was anyone else like them in the world. They're
right.
they're in a shop by themselves, they're the only female. There's no one that looks like them, or they've never been around any other badass women, other than, maybe on social media or TV or however that they knew of Jessi, but never really had access to like almost a peer group like them. And so what we've done is created access points for them to get to know each other.
Mhm,
And that was an unlock. I think when we first started, we had a Zoom call with the first 7 girls, to talk to them about their paperwork and things of that nature. And I saw something that it was like these girls were connecting, and it was like, we want to do this again. We want to, like, I want to get to know
right.
you more. Like, there's somebody else like me out there. Like, oh my God, like, and so that started, and it was during COVID, so Zoom was like the only way to connect, and that became, so every month since the beginning, we've
Mhm,
hosted these calls, and girls come and they share um, all kinds of things with each other, and then they can help each other out, and then
mhm,
that's snowballed into them girls that want to come and we owe as a foundation, we've tried to show up within the communities that were important to Jessi, the motorcycling community, for example, and the biker bells, and
mm,
um, the Sturgis community. Jessi grew up in South Dakota, that's born and raised, so like that's her. Sturgis is her backyard.
yeah, exactly.
So like, how do we continue to be in service to that community, and then the race community? with King of the Hammers, which is a race series that she competed in and won, and was the first female to podium, and earned a race car, earned not just a seat. She had seats in other cars, but for someone built a car for her, and she won in it. And like I just think about, and we have that car now. The foundation, the car was donated to the foundation by the race team. And I look at that car and I'm like, what how hard she had to work um, to get that place.
Mhm.
And that still exists, and that's what we have to honor and to carry forward and to connect these other women with
Mhm.
in the foundation. So one of my
So,
favorite stories is the donation of that vehicle, because Jessi broke down. It's a Jeep. Her race Jeep called Goldie Rocks, because it's gold and it's a rock crawler. But anyway, she it was, when it was donated to us, it still was in the disrepair from what caused her to break down in her last race.
mhm.
And so it needed repairs. And I remember sitting down and going, okay, here we've got this vehicle now, and how are we going to use it? How would Jessi use it? And it's been in several automotive museums and things of that nature. And I'm like, we've got to fix this vehicle. I know exactly who to call. We've got 35 badass women
Right.
with skills and the
Exactly.
will, and so they fixed Jessi's car. Um,
Mhm.
we flew several, waves of girls in, because and we had a deadline, because we wanted to go to Moab for Easter Jeep Week, which, for people who don't know, that's like the Sturgis. I learned this. That's like the Sturgis of the Jeep world in
Mhm.
Moab, Utah. And so like every Jeep enthusiast, goes, and so Jessi used to go and do trail rides with fans and take that car. And I'm like, okay, we need to get that car back on those trails where Jessi used to go, and in a new way, and with her girls behind the wheel.
Mhm.
And so
Incredible.
they flew in, fixed the car. Several handfuls of them came in and used their skills to fix the vehicle. And then we got the vehicle to Moab, and we led the first, the Trailblazer Run, which was a female-led trail ride in Moab, Utah. And we do that every year now.
That is so cool, Dana. I mean, what a collection of stories you have, and what an amazing, like, palette of experience that not only you have gone through, right, since the beginning of your career into motorcycling, but you brought all of these things, these stories, these adventures, the spirit of Jessi, the start of this foundation in her name, that's the ripple effects of this continuing to help women in trades, continuing to help, so many people who are passionate about, whether it's welding or cars or motorcycling or mechanics. I mean, really open those avenues to more people and supporting those people in those trades. I mean, it's really so cool. And I
Thank
am
you.
just
Thank you, Kelly.
no, I see it, and I know everyone who's gonna be tuning into this YouTube video is gonna be super inspired to learn more. So I'd love to ask, like, where can people find out more about the Jessi Combs Foundation?
Thanks. It's so you can visit our website, jessicombsfoundation.com, and then on our social media channels, primarily Instagram is where we show up. And then, out on the highway somewhere, or at one of these races. But we show up in Sturgis every year, um, and have, because that was really important, and that's actually turned into our class reunion for our scholarship girls. We invite
Mhm.
all of them to come. We rent we have a farmhouse up in Nemo. If you know where Nemo is,
Yeah, I do, of course.
like some of the best riding. And so the girls come, some fly, some ride, some drive, but anything they can do to get there. And that's become a really special time of year every year. And
Mhm.
so, come to the Women's Day at Sturgis and find us, where we work with Real Deal
Awesome.
Revolution to put tools in girls' hands. You can learn to weld. Um, you can learn to do all kinds of things. Cause I really, Jessi, that was her, if you can do this, like what else is possible? Um,
Yes.
it was a big thing for her. So yeah, that's, oh, and the other piece that Kelly, that I should mention is Jessi's documentary. For those that may not know of it, it's brought a whole new Jessi's story to a whole new audience of people that otherwise didn't know about
Hmm.
Jessi. And it's called The Fastest Woman on Earth, and it's streaming on HBO Max.
Hmm.
So, I would love for more people, for as many people as possible, to see that film, because Jessi commissioned that, and she had cameras following her for like 7 years.
Hmm.
In this pursuit, which another reason she was a visionary. But now her story is kind of is there and available to the world. It's like I tear up when I'm on a United flight and I see Jessi, the movie come,
Yes.
and I'm like on HBO, I'm like, oh my God, like this,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
So it really is special. So I think
Yes.
it's super inspiring. So
Ripple effects, right? Ripple effects, Dana. And how, for anyone who wants to get in touch with you, how can people get in touch with you? Is that best through social or?
yeah, probably social. Well, I don't have personal social media accounts. That's another thing. I'm like kind of, I don't do social on a personal level, but I definitely do work on the foundation side of things. So, you can direct message the foundation Instagram page, and one of us will follow up. Or on our website, there's a form submission that you can do.
Mhm.
And if anybody, if women we're always trying to get the word out about our scholarship program, because
Absolutely.
so if anyone listening knows a woman that's going to trade school or thinking about it, show show her the website, show her that she's not the only one, and that there's others out there ready to cheer her on. Um,
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Well, we'll definitely include those links in the description of this video so people can find and follow and apply if they're interested in the scholarship program. And just to tie this all together, I would love to ask you this question because you've ridden all over the world. I know all over Europe, all over the States, back to Sturgis so many times. And I'm sure that you've been in experiences, whether that's, you've been in accidents or maybe you've seen motorcycle accidents. And in general, I would just love to ask, for someone who has ridden so many miles, what would you what would you say are some tips to encourage riders to either ride more safely, or just some tips for motorcycling in general?
Good question, Kelly. Um, Seat time is the first thing that comes to my mind, and
Mhm.
practicing. So, I mean, that's, and, taking a motorcycle safety class, there's a lot of folks out there that ride that they're like, "Oh, I know what I'm doing," or whatever. But like taking that motorcycle safety class, you learn skills that you may think or your buddy or your homie or whoever that showed you how to ride is
Right.
tell you about. So like get educated on those basic skills, so that's your foundation, and then practice, then because when those moments come up that unexpectedly, you have the skill sets to do what you can to to react in a way that that's kind of in your subconscious. That's that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's the seat time for me was, for me personally, that's what changed a lot, because, I would, in college and others, I would ride on a weekend here and there. And so, it's almost like starting over each time, where you're really having to think about each little thing. But the more seat time you get, whether it's ride to the grocery store, ride to work, like just ride as much as you can. Um, because that builds that muscle memory,
Mhm.
to you know and reaction time and all those things, so and builds the confidence. So that's a tip that I would give, because that's what changed things for me. And so I know
Yes.
there are folks out there that that are riding, they don't necessarily it's like, oh, I ride once every few weeks or once, once a couple times a year. And like, that's, it's just like any skill, it requires practice. And through that practice and, you gain wisdom and experience and confidence.
Mm-hmm. And we
Why
get
that's
better
anything.
each time. Yeah. Well, Dana, it is such a pleasure to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us on this interview with Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. I can't wait to see you this summer at Sturgis. I'll see you at the homecoming, and I'm sure we'll be catching up very
Awesome.
soon before
Thanks,
then.
Kelly.
Yes. All right, my friend. Well, take care, and thanks again, everyone. Dana Wilke, thank you guys for joining us.